Hello.
Hello, hello. That was amazing. That little video they just
That was
played.
incredible. I know it
Yeah,
had like so. As I think you know, I finished reading the book this morning. So to see all those key elements just then with the music, I was like, oh shoot,
yeah.
they already made the movie.
I know. It's great. Yeah, I just got like a little ooh. Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. Hi, beautiful world. I am Josh Malerman. I am the author of Bird Box and Daphne. I'm also in a rock band called the High Strung. I've been in this band with my best friends. We've been best friends since we were about 11. Started the band when we were like 20, and I'm in my mid 40s now, and we are still playing together. And the esteemed guest of the hour is Melanie Golding. I'm going to read your bio.
Oh,
Melanie is a graduate of the MA program in creative writing from Bath Spa University with distinction. Her occupations have been varied, including farmhand, wow, factory worker, wow, childminder, that's wow, and music teacher, which we'll come to. Throughout all of this, because and in spite of it, there was always the writing. In recent years, she has won and been shortlisted in several local and national short story competitions. Her first novel, Little Darlings, has been optioned for screen for free range films. And also, this book, The Hidden, is BNN's mystery and thriller monthly pick for the month of March, which is super exciting. Congrats on that.
thank you very much. It is. It's really exciting. Yeah, it's amazing. What an opportunity. Really, really thrilled about that. Yeah.
Yeah, like the book's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And I wanted to ask you right off the bat, I have this list. Some things are like, hey, that's cool. Other things are actual questions. Um, the opening scene of the book, and this is something I think of often, that oftentimes like an opening scene can almost act as fuel for the rest of a story. And I think that the movie The Witch did this well, and some other books will encounter. But the opening scene of The Hidden seems especially, the rest of the book can ride on the thrill of that opening scene. And I'll let people know, a 2-year-old, not even quite 2-year-old girl is left standing outside a store, a seafront shop door. Where's mom? A character, Ruby, arrives. We know that she's not mom. But we also know the kid recognizes her. Ruby makes off with the kid. We have a sense that maybe Ruby's actually doing something right, not wrong. This is all in the opening. But it's such a powerful like opening scene that I honestly believe that can fuel so much, because it opens so many questions. It introduces so many characters. And I wanted to ask you, were you like aware of that kind of thing? And were you like, is that what first came to you as that scene? Were you aware of this kind of thinking when you wrote it?
That's a super amazingly good question, actually, because the opening scene of the toddler being found in a shop is taken from a real life event. So I had been playing around with this idea with the Selkies for a while, and then occasionally my friends would just send me like interesting news articles, and one of my friends had sent me this link to this article about a child who had been found in a shop, a little 2-year-old, and they were looking for its mother. But the interesting thing about it was they said the child looked really well cared for. It wasn't like an abandoned child who looked at kind of dirty or like uncared for. They'd found this mystery toddler in like just on its own in a shop, and that kind of it just like rang a great big bell for me. And I was like, imagine, why is that? What's that child doing there? Where's its mother?
Wow.
And it
That's
sort of slotted in. Yeah.
that's amazing. Okay, so that's cool, because I didn't even really notice that you just said it. When you read that and you read that the kid is obviously cared for, that in it within itself becomes a whole mystery. This is not the kid doesn't feel abandoned necessarily. It feels like something else is afoot that we will discover as we keep reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is okay. That's awesome. I had no idea that it came from something like that. Let me ask you about the music part, because the music element, and I hadn't read your bio, so I'm reading your book, and it gets to Ruby, and it gets to the devil's tritone, which, by the way, is that a real thing?
Yeah.
It is, and you know it.
Yeah. So a lot of a lot of like West Side Story is based on that interval.
Oh,
It's like, yeah, the devil's interval.
and so
Anyway, it's kind of a nerdy music nerd.
did you just summon the devil by singing that?
Maybe I did.
If somebody pops on in the chat. So, okay, I'm in a band. I'm obviously not like a music teacher, and I play like cowboy chords while the boys do all the dirty work. But I was able to recognize right away. I'm like, oh, this is someone who knows what the hell she's talking about in terms of music. You can just tell. I think there are things, and for anyone watching, if you don't have to play music to write about music, of course, whatever. But there are some things that you can just feel the authenticity of, and that's one of them. Like someone that just knows music, knows how it feels on your fingers, knows the how to talk about it, the language involved. And then I read in your bio that you're a music teacher. Can you tell me like more of that whole world and in your writing and stuff?
Yeah, so I started off as a as a musician in a band. So I guess in a way I feel a bit of affinity with you on that, because that's what I was going to do. I was going to be like a rock star when I was young. So when I was like 13, I was in my first band and I was singer-songwriter, and yeah, putting in a lot of hours, like writing a lot of songs and things. And I went to college and I did popular music. So I'm a guitarist, really. I'm like a chordy, strummy type.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but yeah. So then I trained as a music teacher when I came out of uni, and the novels was like a side project. I was always writing on the side, like I would write stuff, and in my head I was like, well, I can't. There's no. I sort of held myself back because I thought there's no point me writing a novel until I know some real things about the world. I felt too young to do it. So when I got to a point with my music, that I sort of felt like I was too old to be a rock star, which is a sad feeling. But I also, at the same time, I thought, well, this is now my time to write a novel.
No, so, okay. I need to highlight that. So did you say that you had at one point, like you were like, I want to write a novel, but I need to live more before I do it?
Yeah,
I can't imagine that sort of patience. I'm like the opposite. I'm like, not that I know everything, but I'll be like, oh, that building, I'm going to write a book about that building. I'm going to write a book about that building. I'm going to write about the sky. I can't imagine that sort of. And do you think in hindsight that helps you? Like, were you right to kind of wait, and then when you sat down to start writing novels, you were ready?
Yeah, I definitely was ready, but I was saying, yes, for me, it was probably not to do myself down, but it was probably more about not laziness, but it's like, writing a novel is like a big effort. You have to dedicate yourself to it. So I kind of, the first novel I wrote, I was probably 27, and I guess 27 is one of those ages in rock music where it's like, well, that's the turning point age, isn't it? That's a kind of like the mythical age. 27, everyone dies. And if you haven't made it by then, so by the time I got to 27, I was like, well, now's the time for me to write novels, because if I'd made it as a rock star, that would have been the end and the beginning. Yeah, but yeah, not really patience, more like laziness, I would say.
Well, that's interesting though, and also the 27, like Saturn's return and all that, and then also 54, like I think Jerry Garcia was 54, 55, so it's also like 27 twice, and you're like, oh man, is there something to this? But okay, so I do have one music question. What is, and I could have Googled this, but I would rather just ask you, what is a Sibelius?
Yeah,
what is that?
Sibelius is a composer. And what happened was, because I am not a classical musician, but as you say, there's a lot of classical music in this book.
Yeah.
But my husband is a violinist.
Oh, sweet.
And he's a classical singer. So he's also a musician, but from the other side of the tracks in a way. And I was trying to I wanted something that my character could be like fully passionate about. That she could sort of achieve on her own. So, and then I was trying to find what I thought the most difficult piece to play, and it turned out to be, like, I was Googling that, I was researching what would be the trickiest, most challenging violin piece, and it turned out to be that Sibelius piece. Yeah, Sibelius is composer.
Yeah, and again, I could have just Googled it, but I was like, I don't, you know
Yeah,
what? No, I'm gonna freaking talk to her. Okay,
yeah,
there was a moment, and this is the last thing about the music. Okay, but there was one moment where it was so realistic to me, where Ruby's like, when she's writing her own, which that was super cool to imagine someone doing that on the violin. But she's writing her own, and then there's a moment where it doesn't like, oh, wait a minute, this is all terrible. This is all totally trite. This is all blah blah blah. And then she's like done. And then I think after she meets Gregor, which viewers, this is a huge moment in the book. I think after she meets him, then she's going back and all of a sudden, wait, you know what? That idea is not so bad. And like she starts like playing it again and working on it. And I think that is something that any writer, no matter how confident or how good or whatever, there is that strange reality where it can look both ways to you. The book you're writing could look absolutely electrifying, original, and then the next day you're like, oh man, this is, for me, I'll be like, oh man, I'm writing this like a frat guy or something, and then the next day I'll be like, oh no, I was right. This is original. I thought that was a brilliant thing. Okay, so let's switch topics, but the dynamic, and I guess this is a spoiler, but I don't know how to talk about this without saying this. I guess I'll let you spoil as much as you want. The whole sister-mother dynamic is huge in this book, and I thought that was a super fascinating side of all this. Do you want to just talk about that a little, Joanna and Ruby?
Yeah. So there's a lot of sort of themes to do with sort of non-traditional ways of working out families, I suppose. So the motherhood themes in there are generally to do with so there's yeah, you're right, there are some spoilery bits, but there's lots of mothers in this book, but they're not necessarily the biological ones. And there's a lot of me thinking about how it's possible to choose your family, and that it's possible that humans are these creatures that can form bonds with other humans that are not their children, but there's also these bonds, like these blood bonds, that are kind of undeniable between humans who are related. Yeah, so I guess there's just a lot of those themes flying around.
I mean, well, the book is like totally loaded with that stuff, and it almost starts to feel like no matter what the mother is, including Marianne, who's the alcoholic mom, you almost get a sense, even with her, everyone's just trying their best or something. Like even her, like I can see someone walking away from that book being like, oh, she was terrible, but no, she tried to call a million times, and her world would have lit up, if I guess I don't want to spoil it, if one of her daughters returned home for a night, not even Christmas night, any night. So there's something super sympathetic about even Marianne also. So there's a sense of every parent that everyone's just trying their best here, man. And not everything, as you said, not everything has to be so traditional or, that kind of thing. For me, I come more of like seat of your pants. I'm a pantser for sure. And it's like there's an idea for a book, and it's like, all right, let's roll, let's go. Bird Box was just, I had an image of a woman, 2 kids blindfolded in a rowboat. Let's start writing that. It's literally all I had when I started the book. But a book like this has to, and this isn't necessarily like a clockwork, mystery like Agatha Christie or something, but there is a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of moving parts in this book. It's not just a question of outlining for you, but like how much thinking goes into that for you. It's hard for me to write a book with this many moving parts. What about for you, like goes into that?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm pantser or a planner in a way. I've got this pet theory that at some point you've got to make it up. So whether you do it like in a plan or like in the long form.
That's a good point.
And I feel like it's the same in a way.
Huh.
But if you're the sort of person who can write notes for a thing and then go on and write in long form, then that is probably the most sensible way to do it. But I can't do that. So I tend to write like way too many words for it. For every novel I've written, I've done 4 times as many words as there are in the book. So I'll write it and then I'll go reverse engineer the bits that I think don't work. And so in terms of like the first draft will look almost, unrecognizable from the final thing. But the things that what I found within my process, and I mean, you've written like a lot more books than I have, so I guess I'm kind of like a not quite as far into my journey in looking at how my process works. So I've written 5 novels in total, and there are 3 that will be published. And I've always got the first image, an opening image, and a closing image.
Oh wow! Like
and I'm working,
in all 5 books so far.
yeah, and I'm
Wow.
working in between those 2 images, and everything in between shifts around. But those 2 things tend to be the same from the beginning to the end.
I have a similar thing. For me, it's not quite first and last, but it's like landmark moments.
Yeah.
And then get from here to there. Like there's 3 or 4 landmarks, and then get from here to there, get from here to there. And there is a certain pressure feeling when you are approaching that landmark. You're like, okay, here's one of the big ones. Here's one of the reasons I'm writing this book. But oftentimes when I go back and rewrite or whatever, those interstitial scenes are that's where all like the beauty happens, because they're a little less spotlit. They're a little less dramatic. They're a little more like whimsical. They're a little more like, it would be like a relationship, like what people say to each other rather than a centerpiece event. And so it's odd that what starts as the landmark moments, by the end of it comes, okay, yeah, those are the touchstones, but the great stuff happens between.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's what comes out when you're in your like artistic flow, I guess, and like you're creating the thing. But I think you do need to have something to aim for.
I think so too, in a general sense. I've definitely written 1 or 2 where I had no aim whatsoever, and that was awesome too. But I did like how you said that in a weird way, pantser and plotting is the same, because you got to make up either way. Yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to ask someone that question again, because that answer. Now you're gonna one day see me saying that to someone, and I'm gonna act like it was mine. I'll be like, actually, it's kind of the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, sorry about that. Yeah.
No. Okay. Here's something that would like cross my mind. Have you seen that movie, The Black Phone?
No, I haven't. What?
Okay. But it's something that's been on my mind lately, because it's definitely present in The Hidden, where The Hidden is not just based on folklore or that kind of thing. There's also, and this is, I don't know if it's spoilery, but it's actually exciting. There's also a serial killer element involved in this book. And Black Phone is about a serial kidnapper, but when the kid is kidnapped, there's a supernatural element in the room that he's held in. That sort of like combination, I feel like sometimes I stop short. I stop at the folklore. I'd be like, oh, I'm writing a book about, the Selkie, right? Is that how you say it? Selkie. Yeah. I'm writing this. Were you consciously like, I want to combine these 2 elements, or did that like come naturally when you're like, now I'm introducing this element? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess in my head, what I've got is the real world, as the real world as like we collectively imagine it to be. And in my head, what I've got is, it's a bit like my kids have got this VR thing, and they draw out like a limit to their world when they're in the VR, right? And then when you go beyond it, it's like it's different. And I feel like the world that we collectively imagine is very logical, it's like post folklore, but that just beyond it, there are things like creatures from way that are older than humans, or that we don't know, and there are forces and there are possibilities, like magical things that happen kind of just beyond what we all collectively imagine is the edge of the world, like the edge of the do you know what I mean? Am I making any sense?
I don't think that you could be giving a better answer than you are, actually. And I think that's an amazing way to look at that. And I think the phrase post folklore is so dark. Like, who wants to live post folklore? Who wants to live post magic? Who wants to live post legend and myth? That's
no. It's kind of like, it's a bit underground, because people, I read some statistics, something like 40% of people believe there's something else, you know, something unknown, and that these things might be real. And I think it links a little bit to some of your work, in that it's about these things can manifest if you think about them. Like if you the power of the human consciousness can manifest these things. And I see that in some of your work. Like there's a fear that you think about thing, it will be real. You look at something and it will be real, it will like kill you, or you hear it and it will, do you know what I mean?
Oh,
So I think,
yes, of course. Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think, and this is not exactly what you're saying, of course, but there are these two schools. One is don't say it or don't write it down because it would come true. The other is I'm if I do write it down or whatever, or if I do say it, then it won't happen, this kind of thing.
yeah.
And forever I was in the former, where it was like, oh no, don't say the word crash before getting on an airplane. And now I'm becoming the latter, where it's like, and it's bizarre because they're both born of anxiety. One way implies you manifest it, the other one implies that you're warded off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm starting to lean, the older I get, I'm leaning more towards like, stay away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like if you don't want to ever see any fairies, like the evil kind, then never speak their name. You're not supposed to say the word fairy. But you know, I don't mind, I quite like them. But it's like that was the myth. So the first novel that I wrote was about fairies and the kind of stuff that they do. And that's one of the little bits of fairy folklore, is that like you say, if you speak the name, like the Rumpelstiltskin type thing.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Or yeah, there's a lot of myths around that, like folklore, to do with naming things. Like the power of names will make these things appear or make things bad happen. Or
And that's Little Darlings, obviously.
Yeah, Little Darlings is changeling babies. So it's that fear that if you leave them alone, you basically, it's like punishing mothers for being bad mothers and leaving their babies on their own. If you take your eyes off your babies for too long, then the fairies will swap them for like evil babies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's that fear like that. Oh, well, if I do something wrong, if I'm not the right kind of mother, then my children will suffer. Yeah, that's the fear that it's playing on, really.
Yeah, that's I feel like I have a sense of what your answer is going to be to this, but are you able to talk about the film side or anything going on? Look, I get asked that too, and it's like, dude, it's like Fort Knox. I'm not even allowed to say one thing about it, which drives me out of my mind. But are you able to say anything about Little Darlings?
I guess they wrote a screenplay for it, and they sent it to me, and I thought it was amazing. Like, it was the best thing ever. And there was a part at the end of the screenplay where I literally went, "Why didn't I think of that?" Like,
yeah,
and I was just like I'm walking around kicking myself that I didn't think of this amazing thing that they've put at the end of the screenplay. But yeah, apart from that, I don't know anything, because it's in what do they call it? Development hell.
Yeah, well, I know. And worse than that for me, like, it's okay if it's there, but at least let me talk about it. At least let me say that it's there. At least let me write about that screenplay and what you just said. At least let me make the announcement. Then, like, if it's not okay, I don't know. If it happens, it happens. But this sense of like, I'm not allowed to say it, and I'm like a total blabbermouth guy. It's so not my personality to be quiet about something like this. So that side of it is maddening to me, you know.
And nobody said that. Nobody has come out with, nobody's made me sign like an NDA or anything. It's just like nobody's said, please don't speak about it. So I think I'm a bit safe there. I'm all right.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Oh my God.
In Bird Box, the movie, the scene that I think is the best moment of the movie is not in the book, where it's a moment where Mallory is deciding which of the kids she's going to have look on the river for her. I'm like, oh, dude, when I got that screenplay, I called the guy. I'm like, can I somehow put that retroactively in the book? Like, that is so good, you know?
It's Sophie's choice.
Yeah, I know. It's like, come on. I'm like, how did I not think of this? All right. So you got a million questions, by the way, which is really cool. And I am I'll read some of them to you. Okay. I think there's some here in the chat as well, which will be fun, but I'll read some of these that came in prior to this here. Okay, no, this is good. This is good. Ready?
Yeah.
This is from Lori Johnson.
Mhm.
How do you pace yourself while writing a new novel? What does your writing schedule typically look like?
Okay, so my writing schedule is essentially I write in all the times when I'm not doing anything else. So, so when I first started writing really seriously, I was in the 5 a.m. club. You know, you get up and you do it
Oh yeah.
before you go to work, and then now these days, as soon as the house is empty, I will write, unless I have to do something else. So I guess it's kind of, I'm still fitting it around everything else, but it is essentially just all day long. And when you're in a novel, it's always in your head. So I must be a nightmare to live with, actually. Sorry to my family.
No, that is, you're so right. It's like constantly in your head. And I know some people would say, writing a novel is so much work. It's not actually just writing. You're constantly thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe that's one way of saying it. Another way is like, you're just in that world. You're in that world. It's all you're thinking about. You'll be at like a friend's house and you're like, oh yeah, no. And you're able to converse, but meanwhile, you're like, you're like in that because you're not done with it yet. Even like the rough draft. For me, the rough draft is always like this brilliant, blinding, manic experience. Because as you said earlier, you make so many changes through the rewrites and this, and you write 4 times as many words. So then what that does for me is that liberates the rough draft. Like if I know that this isn't going to be the finished thing, then let's roll, anything goes. So that experience is always electrifying. And to not have reached the end of it, it'd be like making an album maybe. And to not have reached the end of it yet, I mean, how can I think about anything else? Yeah. Here, this is a question that I want to know the answer to for sure. I want to make sure I get their name. Hold on. The name is, I think it's Abina Miles. What was your hardest scene to write in The Hidden and why?
Well, I guess there's a lot of sort of hard subject matter in there because the Selkie myth is very much about domestic kind of abuse in a way. It's kind of about dysfunctional relationships between overpowering men and women who are taken advantage of. So there are some like scenes in there that were hard for me to kind of live through with my characters. But in a way that makes it more effective as a piece of writing. So I guess in terms of, I didn't find any of it difficult to write, as in like the writing is always as easy or difficult as it is, you know. But the emotions within it, some of those are difficult, but I always feel like it makes it a better book.
You know, I thought one thing that freaked me out was how, like, I'm reading your book and I was thinking about like how easy it is to track someone. Because that, you know, I don't mean to spoil something, but whatever. There's some of that going on in this book. And I'm like, man, this doesn't even seem like this would be hard to do right now. Like the elements that he's got set up to track people, to track them. That I'm like, this is completely conceivable, like completely like doable, and doesn't even look like it would be that expensive.
Yeah,
that was like freaking me out.
You can get these recording things that like last for 70 hours and are voice activated, and you just hide them in someone's house and you can listen to everything they say. It's
right. And there's all these like, I mean, you know, now I'm starting to get a little paranoid. There's all these computers and phones and those little dinky, I don't even know what the hell they're called, where you like say, Alexa, play this song or something, right? Like they're like in every room or whatever. It's like, it really wouldn't be that hard to be like a controlling guy right now. It really wouldn't be. And so, and I hadn't really thought of it in those terms. I think I always thought of it in terms of like Big Brother is in every room. But reading your book, I was like, oh man, oh wow, this is like freaky in a more personal way. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. This is a fun one from Rachel Donovan. Who is your favorite character that you have created in your book and why?
Well, in this book, I would say it's Leone, the little baby, the toddler. I really liked writing the scenes with her in it. I suppose I was like you read out in my bio, for a long time I was, because I was a music teacher, my husband was a music teacher, but then when we had our first kid, there weren't any jobs, so we just thought, well, we'll do childminding. So we opened like a little nursery in our house, and we had other people's babies. For about 9 years, we just worked together looking after other people's.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so when I wrote her, because I knew so many children of that size, and I still do actually, because I still work as a musician for a musical story session that we run in the local area. So I see a lot of toddlers. So Leonie is like a real person to me. It's like I looked after her. Yeah, she's so kind of cheeky.
No, it's cool because, like, as Ruby's I guess falling in love with her, like I found myself like feeling the same way. I'm like, oh, I want to, and it wasn't so much like want to protect her. It was like you actually just love this kid.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Because there's something, Leonie's like seems like independent in a way. Well, in a big way actually. But so it wasn't this sense of like, oh, I want to save her. But it was a sense of like, oh, this kid's cool. Yeah. Yeah. Let me read you another one. And by the way, anyone watching, you can also ask questions. I don't know if I see quite questions happening here, but I do love to see all these. Richmond, Winston-Salem. I love Winston-Salem. My band played in Winston-Salem. Michigan. Hi. I am in Michigan myself. This is maybe a hard question. It is for me, but I don't know for you. I think the name is Praz Patel. How do you decide if an idea is good enough to be turned into a novel?
Well, I think if it arrives in your mind and then won't leave, that's how you know. Like I have many ideas, and I'll write down ideas. I've got like files in my computer that are just like novel ideas, and there's like 25 ideas, but then I never look at them. It's always the one that stays in my mind that you can't stop thinking about. What about you? What would you say the answer to that question?
So I have a list. And at some point I said to myself, hey man, just start, literally the list would get pretty big, like you're saying, like 20 something. And then there's something like paralytic about that, right? You're like, I don't know what you want to do, right? But then something in my mind was like, just go down the list, just do it. Literally whatever order they're in, because I think at some point I must have seen this, how it could be a novel for it to have made the list. And so if I look at that list now and I'm like, yeah, that idea, well, then I'm not seeing it right now. It's there to be seen though. So even if there's an idea where I'm like, no, that one, I'm like, hold on, stop. Think about this one for a while. And it's almost like forcing to have happen what you're saying. Like, I haven't thought of it in a while, in so long, in fact, that it looks silly or whatever. But then I'm like, no, this meant something to you. Find that vision again. And it almost always works without fail. I'm like, oh yeah, right. Because then if this happens and this happens, now like a book like this, and then I can start working on it. That's
really good. I mean, like I'm at the moment, I'm sort of trying to work out what to write next. And I feel like now what I'm going to do is open that up and just do number one.
Right. Just go down the list. And I got this friend that he's like, hey, Josh, you're prolific. And he sent me this long list. One was he wants to start a TV show and he wants to, write and make an album cover. I'm like, just go down the list. Just do it. Because you want to do each of those. And each of them, I keep saying it, but you saw it at one point in time. That means it's there to be done by you. Do it. And he hasn't written me back yet, but
maybe he's just too busy, like doing the thing.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe you're right. Maybe he's on like number 2 already or something. Here, hold on. I wanted to say something else that I noticed too. Oh, this was God, I don't want to be as a spoiler. I'll just say this to you, and I'll say this to anyone watching it. This isn't a spoiler, but it's just there's so many exciting moments in the book, and there's a lot of smaller ones that mean something to me, like when Ruby takes that whole spoonful, let's just say that. I thought not only was that like the moment where to me it's like, oh, now she's full protective of Leonie, right? But also it kind of showed that Ruby's like kind of adventurous to have like done that, because I was putting myself in that position and I'm like, you don't know exactly what it is. You don't know exactly how strong it is. You don't know this. And I can't remember. I think it was Constance said, someone said take half of one or whatever.
Yeah.
And then she was like, and I was like, I think I would have done that too. And I thought there was something like interesting in such a small little moment, because you could have just had half the thing like advised, but it was the whole spoonful. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, which is it's like having like those two sides to your personality, and you'll know people who sort of limit themselves in various areas of their lives, and they'll be like, oh no, I won't eat oysters, or I won't like do that thing, or I won't go that place, and then they'll surprise you and they'll go and do something that you think is wild. And I love that people. Yeah.
I know. I we have this one friend that's like the nicest guy, but every now and then he'll just do the shadiest thing. And it's like there's something like, it's like when he lies or something, there's something like, oh, okay, there's more to this guy. Okay. And there's something like thrilling to me about that. Here, hold on. Let me get you another one. Okay. And hello, Long Island. I've definitely been in Long Island too. Have you? Where do have you been here?
No.
You haven't. I've never been there. Well, where exactly are you?
I am in the Cotswolds, so it's like southwest of England. Yeah. So I don't know, Bristol. You heard of Bristol?
A great friend. Well, a great writer friend of mine, Ross Jeffrey, lives in Bristol. Do you know him or no?
No, I don't think I do. But
He's great. He's an amazing. This guy is amazing, and we, just randomly had sort of a writing rough draft experiment where we would send each other every 10,000 words. So it was kind of like you felt like you were performing for someone.
Yeah.
Because I was at 10,000, I'm sending it to Ross and he's sending me his. So rather than, it wasn't much of like beta reading or like, critiquing. It wasn't really that. It was more like serializing novels for each other.
Yeah.
It's kind of an awesome thing. He's in Bristol, and that's my big connection.
Yeah. That sounds great. It also sounds a bit like the MA that I did, in that the important bit about it was making you do the work. Like you do the work, right, and you send it off, and you got so many words to do. It makes you do it.
Okay. So, yeah. I have maybe you don't agree with this, but I have a philosophy I run by where, to me, inspiration is like it's like an inverted monster. You're not waiting, or you're not, it's not going to run into the room and blah. It's actually going to wait outside the room, and you're going to be waiting for it forever. If I only wrote on the days where I felt inspired, I mean, how many times a year would that happen? I don't even know, like a handful, unless we're born inspired and don't know. You get what I'm saying, though. When you really felt like, I'm going to do it right now. My argument for myself that I've made it some time ago is, if I read a year's worth of work, and let's say I wrote almost every day, whatever it is, I would not be able to tell you which days were inspired and which days were not. Once that reality took root, it was like, well, then why shouldn't you write it all the time? And when people say that they write every day, nobody does every day. Like Stephen King, he doesn't write every single day. Nobody writes every single day. But in a general sense, like if you're writing a lot all the time, right? Why not write all the time, whether you want to or not? And it's like you just said, having that to send to Ross, it was more like, oh, I'm supposed to get 10,000 more words to this guy. And it's all silly in a way, because it's deadlines of your own making. But if it gets you doing it, and if it doesn't matter if you're quote unquote inspired or not, well, then that's all that matters, is that we get to doing it. So I don't know if you feel that way about your own, but that's what
Yeah. Did
I am.
you have a like a target? So when you sit down to write, do you have a target word count, or do you just go with however many you can get out?
I think that after a while, like each book, so there's no writing routine. There's no general writing routine, like the 5 a.m. or Bird Box was written between 8 a.m. and noon every day.
Mhm.
Ghoul in the Cape was like 8, or that one was a little all over. Incidents Around the House was 8 at night till midnight. The last one was like more like afternoon. They're usually about 3-4 hour sessions. So there's no overarching like in my life routine, but within each book there is.
That's really
And
interesting.
that's true of word count as well.
Yeah.
So Bird Box was an insane 4,300 words a day. But this other book, a favorite of mine, was 1,000 a day. The typical one's like 2,200 a day, something like that. So no, but eventually I'll hit a groove where I'm like, oh, I had no idea I was writing a night novel that's about 2,500 words a day. But 10, 11 sessions in, I realized that's what it is. What about you?
So your novels like live with you at different times of the day and for different amounts of work. That's it's really interesting that they do that on the regular, like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, me, yeah, every book is different, and it's about what's going on with the rest of my life, I suppose. Um, I haven't noticed that. I don't think mine do that. This last one that I've just completed, at one point when I was drafting it, it was going like 3,000 words a day to get it out,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that, yeah, but generally I will sit down, and if it's a day, I'll go, well, I need to get to 1,500. And then if I do, I feel like I'm finished. And if I do
Yeah,
more,
no, that does feel like a good number, right?
yeah,
1,500 feels like even if you got there in, I don't know, 90 minutes or 2 hours, whatever it is, even if it wasn't the longest session or whatever, it still feels like I did it.
yeah,
And it's amazing. It's for anyone watching, for any writers, prospective writers, it's unbelievable how quickly these numbers add up. It's like
mm,
a month is going to go by either way. Why not mark it with an hour of writing? If you write 1,500 a day in a month, you have what, 45,000 words? That's like half a novel in a month just by like doing what I can. I mean,
yeah.
and when you start to see that in reality, again, this is another one of those things. It's like, well, then why not do this all the time? And I know that some of this can start to sound like Tony Robbins of writing, like, hey, people, like I have a headset and I'm like on a self-help stage, just like, but it's true. It's incredible how quickly these numbers add up, because a couple of weeks are going to pass either way, and here you have 100 pages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mind
yeah.
you, one of my tutors at Bath Bar, it's called Tessa Hadley. She's a literary novelist, amazing writer, and she was asked this question in front of a whole bunch of students. What's your word count per day? And she said 400, and everyone in the room, there was like an audible, like, oh, I don't have to 400. And then you write those kinds of novels that are amazing and beautiful and so well put together. And she's just like very confidently, yeah, 400 and I'm done. Like, but it might take her all day to do those 400.
Oh, I know. It's that. So, okay. I know a fella, his is 500.
Right.
And it was that number like haunted me. I'm like, only 500. So I tried one that way. I was like, you know what? Next one, I'm going to do that. Unburied Carol was 5,300 for me. Bird Box 43. 500 sounded insane to me. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And I tried it, and I think it's probably the clunkiest thing that I've ever done. I mean, it's like being a musician. Like, I don't know the equivalent of 500, I guess maybe a studio musician, whereas like 4,000 words a day is like you're feeling it, you're rolling, and you're going to take the best of the take rather than the sharp shooting overdub.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. Hi everyone. Hello from England. It's very rainy here today. Same here too. It's snowy here. Let me give you one. I think we have time for like one more. I mean, we have time for whatever. The world is ours. Okay, but okay. Yes, this is interesting. Someone said, does the book have to do with you or someone's real life experience? And that answer is yes. I had no idea that opening scene. Did you
Yeah,
ever find out more about that story?
it was one of those news stories where there were more unanswered questions than, and I think when they found the child's mother, they essentially arrested her, and she was like charged with leaving the child. So none of the questions that I had were answered, as in why, what happened. And I was like, well, I need to write a whole novel about that. Yeah. So, but also it is possible that, so basically they arrested her, but obviously in my novel they don't arrest her, they let her go, and it's like you have to call it on the day. So I was checking with my social worker friends as to whether that was plausible, and they were saying, well, yeah, it depends how they behave.
Oh, I love the Diane scene, the Ruby Diane scene in the car. That scene's amazing, and that's very early. People, everyone watching, I love that scene because there's that moment where Diane has to like read her, like, do I let this go or not? You know, and I feel like I understand definitely understand the person that crosses every T, dots every I. That would be like, no, I'm running this. I'm looking more into this. I think I would have reacted like Diane did. I would have been like, all right, this is probably good.
It's fine. Yeah, and those kinds of things, if it's only if they come back to bite you, isn't it? And then you get,
yeah, no, exactly right, because 909. Wow, my cat is doing this, by the way. Hey, buddy. Hold on. Go ahead. Hi, it's okay. Oh my God, you want to come here? You can come here. Oh my God, we just got 2 kittens, and this is one of them. But anyway, she's kind of moving away. I want readers to know, Joanna, was that her name? It's Joanna, right?
yeah.
The book. Joanna is, I absolutely loved her. She was my favorite character to keep like returning to. You know how, well, of course you know how, but the chapters would be like Ruby now, the injured man then, Joanna, you know, the Joanna sections were so like thrilling to me to return to, not because of the police procedural necessarily, but just because of who she is. And I love, and I won't spoil this for anyone, but I freaking love the last scene with Amy with her. That's just a brilliant scene.
So that Amy and Joe feature in the first novel as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and there's actually a lot more of it in that novel, I would say. So in a way, I've included her in this novel to answer questions that people who've read the first novel may have had about this.
Okay, all right. Well, then, for anyone watching, yeah, Joe was like, I wanted to like go get a drink with her, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something about her. I was like, okay, Joe, I want to like this lady's cool, you know, in a different way. Yeah, it's like she knows what matters or something. Before you and I leave, is there anything that you want to like talk about in terms of like stuff coming up or any of that kind of stuff?
Oh, that's one of those questions I'm going to find hard to answer. Oh, I don't know. Well, people should go down to the Barnes and Noble stores and buy the book. I think they should just, if they haven't already. There's this.
Yes, and I'll read this too. Okay, The Hidden, as already been mentioned, BNN's mystery thriller March monthly pick. That's bnn.com, and also local Barnes and Noble stores, just so you know.
Yeah, cool. So again, I was going to say, you have a book coming out. I have another book coming out in September, and you have one. Is it? No, Daphne's out already, isn't it?
Daphne is out.
Yeah.
And Spin a Black Yarn comes out in August. This is, I love
that cover. Amazing cover, that.
Thanks. Yeah. I love it too. This is a collection of novellas, which, you know, in the horror sphere, God, the novella is such a sweet spot because sometimes I think the scariest story I ever hear is the shortest, like a friend just says like 3 sentences about he saw his aunt, you know, his dead aunt in the basement or something. And then the horror short story is like is always like so haunting because there wasn't time to be anything but that moment, that mood. Oftentimes the horror novel, it's a very hard thing to do to maintain that mood for 300 pages. But the novella, that gives you that room. It gives you enough room to stretch, but you can kind of maintain that initial coldness or that unsettlingness for like 150 whatever pages.
Yeah.
So all of us horror writers are fans of the novella,
Yeah, but you know, I've not written anything that length. I really need to, but I haven't ever.
Oh, yeah.
I've either written very short things or very long things. So
Yeah.
I need to look for that sweet spot.
There's something about it because it's like you're kind of like even some of my favorite horror novels of all time will have like sort of like either tangents or jokes or something that I'm like, oh, we didn't need to go there. But you almost get this sense like, well, I'm trying to fill a book here, Josh, and these are some books that I love. And so to condense that and nobody like no screwing around, we can maintain this for 100 pages. That's a fun, that gives you time to get to know someone. I can imagine Joe in a novella for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. This is great. I'm gonna, as soon as I'm off, I'm gonna go look at whatever my number one idea was, and then I'm gonna see what kind of novella Joe can be in. This is great.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna do the same. I have the list is like there's this screen and then a couple other screens, and then it's behind there. I'm gonna go to that list when this is over too.
Yeah.
All right. I think that is it for us with all of you. And thank you so much for hanging out. As you see here, there's a link there for the hidden. And there's more BNN virtual events. And it was really awesome meeting you.
Yeah, and you. Thanks so much for interviewing me. It was like an unbelievable honor, I would say.
Well,
Yeah.
I will not to be like weird or something. I've never done this before. Whatever we just did, I've never interviewed someone.
Oh,
Yeah, I haven't.
Yeah. Oh wow, you're really good at it. You should do more.
Okay. Good. All right, I will. I got the email. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, what did I just agree to? I have to like, and then I was like, oh no, come on, this will be great. This will be great.
Oh, cool. No, I didn't know that. Yeah, I figured you were like an old hand, but
no, literally first time. All right. Love to all. Thank you for coming. And I know we've said it a million times, but the book is freaking amazing. The writing is amazing. The thinking behind it is amazing. The soul of it's great. Check out The Hidden. And thank you, BNN.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody for coming along.
All right. Bye, Melanie.
Bye.